Okay, welcome back. Let's see. We left off within several layers of flashbacks here. One by one the visions came, one by one she erased them. We are currently flashing back into Yuuri, flashing back into our head. This is wild. One by one she killed all traces of herself within Natsuhiko. With each memory erased, Natsuhiko suffered intense pain, and the pain in Yuri's heart grew little by little as well. Eventually, she had erased just about all the relevant memories, including the one of them coming to Labo just a few months ago. Just one more memory. One more memory and it'll have vanished from Hikorin's mind. Yuri withstood the pain in her heart to peek into his final memory. But Yuri gasped when she saw the vision that spread out before her. It was a vast night sky filled with stars all the way across the heavens. Two children looked up at the Milky Way that nostalgic summer night. Natsuhiko responded to Yuri's words. Two of them were next to each other. Natsuhiko held Yuri's hand tight as he spoke.
ねえ、ユーリ。僕、今日のこと忘れないよ。ユーリと一緒に星を見たこと、きっと忘れない。
Those were Natsuhiko's words. If Yuri but willed it, this memory would sink into the darkness. That everything would be wrapped up neatly, and yet, Yuri couldn't bring herself to do it. Within Natsuhiko's memory, Yuri's tears streamed out. Even though such a memory was impossible, it seemed Yuuri began to fabricate his memory with her transcendental ability, almost unconsciously. Oh.
どうしたんだ、ユーリ。
私、消えたくなんかない。
That was the honest desire she had locked up deep within her heart. Her true feelings.
お願い、ヒコリン。私を忘れないで。
That final desire conveyed to Natsuhiko, Yuuri returned to reality. When she was back, Yuuri cried tears in the real world as well. In her blurry vision, she saw Dr. Tenkawa peeking at her.
ユーリちゃん、どうしたの？何か問題が？
Yuuri shut her eyes tight and squeezed out an answer.
ごめんなさい、博士。私にはできません。ユーリちゃん、あなた一体何を？
Professor tried to stop Yuuri. Before she could, Yuuri used Senses Sympathy once more. Oh no. Only a single memory of Yuuri remained. But all the memories Yuuri erased still remained deep within her heart of hearts. The memories she erased were the memories they shared, which meant there was only one thing for her to do. Oh, God. Do we have to do this?
なあなあ、なんで泣いてるの？
Yuuri reconstructed the memories she erased based on her own knowledge. She restored memory after memory.
ヒコリンのお嫁さんになりたいな。最後まで読んじゃったね。この写真、夏彦くんのお母さん？私ね、コミュニケーターで良かったと思うことが一つあるよ。それはね、夏彦くんに会えたこと。
She was restoring Natsuhiko's memory in a matter of moments. Doing so would mean Natsuhiko would once again know about Yuri's death. Then he would once again blame himself and shatter his mind. So Yuuri made her resolve. Had no choice but to replace the me that's gone with the me that's there. Yuuri dove into Natsuhiko's memory of that fateful night. That night Natsuhiko learned of Yuri's death 3 months prior.
落ち着いて聞いて。ユーリちゃんは
昨べ息を引き取ったわ。
This is...
女
I wonder how Yuri's going to feel knowing that her desire to make sure Natsuhiko didn't forget her inevitably caused him to hallucinate her and put untold stress on his family, on his mom and his best friend, for years, keeping up that illusion so his mind didn't break again.
どうしてユーリが
In reality, Natsuhiko screamed after this. That was likely the very moment his mind lost its balance. In that case, this memory just needs to be changed. Yuri focused to do just that. Change this memory into a new one. Then Natsuhiko screamed, holding back his tears.
嘘だユーリが死んだわけない
He jumped out of his bed and ran off. What? Ran down the hall, searching for Yuri.
ユーリいるんだろ出てきてくれ
No matter how many neighboring rooms he called out to, he got no response. Natsuhiko rushed out of the hospital in search of Yuri. He aimlessly wandered around town. He couldn't find her anywhere. Not at her house, not at the park where they met, nor at their nostalgic secret base. Jesus.
ユーリユーリ
When he tired of searching, the last place Natsuhiko headed was his own home. The house was steeped in darkness. Natsuhiko blankly called out her name,
ユーリ
but obviously he didn't expect to get an answer. However, just then, from across the dark room,
ヒコリ
Yuri's voice called out in reply.
ユーリ
Natsuhiko rushed up to her.
よかった生きてたんだね
私が死んだと思ってたの？
だってお母さんが変なこと言うから
死んでなんかいないよ。
Oh god. Yuri smiled at Natsuhiko.
ねえヒコリン、私はいつでもここにいるよ。ヒコリンとずっと一緒にいるよ。だから忘れないで。どうか私のことを。
Those were the words she could not tell him in the real world. They were the words both Yuri and Natsuhiko wished for. Even if those words were a lie, they sank deep into Natsuhiko's mind. Drove away the truth.
忘れるもんか
Once everything was complete, Yuri returned to reality. Professor murmured in a hollow voice.
ユーリちゃん、
博士、ごめんなさい。私にはできませんでした。
Yuri felt genuinely sorry. She knew what she had done was inexcusable, but
それでいいわ。
the professor's voice was kind, which only served to deepen the pain in Yuri's heart.
夏彦が目覚める前に行きましょう。
They quietly left the laboratory, leaving Natsuhiko behind. Natsuhiko was astonished. That was the whole story of what had happened to him. Complete record of a truth unrevealed to him even when he had dived into Mashiro's memory. I was only able to wake up from my stupefaction because of Yuri. But what happened as a result of her efforts? Of course, Natsuhiko himself was well aware of exactly what happened to him after that. Even so, in order to affirm the entire truth, he pursued Yuri's memories further. Next thing Natsuhiko saw was far further into the future than what he saw last. Memory of the recent past. Okay, this is the stuff I'm actually interested in. I feel... I get we're going for a best friend doesn't want to leave her friend. Doesn't want him to suffer, but doesn't want him to forget her. It's supposed to be touching? Question mark. But the knowledge of the truth of the before route really just makes what Yuri did feel bitter. and does not make me... I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Natsuhiko naturally knew just how much time had passed. Like, that's legitimately... I don't like that at all. Sorry, Yuuri, I don't like that. That was not cool. Ah, it's 9 years after that day, huh? Yes, this was the memory of just around 2 months ago. That day, Yuuri was in her own room in Labo, having a talk with the professor.
今年も7月7日が来たわね。
早いですね。もう9年ですか。
All that time, Yuuri had grown, both physically and mentally. As a test subject, Yuuri had proven to be a major contribution to Labo's developed products, especially in the fields of AD development and BC insulator improvement. She had not a single worry and spent her days in true peace.
ゆりちゃんどうだったこの9年間。
楽しかったですよ。欲しいものは何でも買ってもらえるし、いいお部屋にも住まわせてもらってるし。
The only luxury she wasn't afforded was the freedom to go outside. She had already stopped thinking about it.
それに博士、すっごく優しいし、なんだかんだで幸せです。本当のお母さんみたいで。
ゆりちゃん。
The professor wrapped her arms around Yuri's shoulders. As Yuuri had said, the professor showered her with unrestrained love. The origin of that love was almost certainly due to the guilt she felt for Yuuri. Regardless, the two of them forged a relationship akin to a real mother and daughter. They shared a deep understanding of each other.
でもやっぱりこの日が来ると考えてしまうわね。
ヒコリンのことですね。
Indeed, now that today had come, there was something they were keenly reminded of, whether they wanted to think of it or not. Ever since that night when Yuuri had manipulated his memories, Natsuhiko had started seeing a phantom of her. 9 years ago, Yuuri fabricated a false memory for Natsuhiko that she was alive and always with him. As a part of that fabrication, she chose not to restore some of his memories, such as the particulars of that incident and how his BC abilities had awakened. It was a very selfish use of memory manipulation, one that left a scar on his mind. Okay.
人間の人格は記憶の集積から成り立つ。魂とは脳内に蓄えられた情報の集合体。そこに捏造された記憶が加わることで現実との決定的な齟齬が生まれた。だから夏彦の脳はゆうりちゃんの幻覚を作り上げることで精神のバランスを保ったのね。
Just minor tampering to his memory, Natsuhiko became so firmly adherent to those lies that even his perception of reality became warped. Over these past 9 years, Yuuri had become painfully aware of the sheer magnitude of the effects memory manipulation had on the human mind.
ねえ博士、私がやったことは正しかったんでしょうか。
正しいとは断言できないけど、ああする以外に方法がなかったのも事実だわ。そもそも夏彦の脳内にあるあなたの記憶を完全に消去するのは難しかったでしょうしね。あの頃はまだよく分かっていなかったけど、研究が進むにつれ記憶消去の問題点が判明したじゃない。消去した記憶は大抵の場合いずれは蘇ってしまうということが。
確かに。
Memories are lumps of powerful information energy. Memory erasure is an ability that destroys that lump of energy by striking it with even stronger energy, which in turn causes the memory to disperse into fragments that are impossible to remember. However, the fragments of the memory and the memory in its entirety do not completely disappear. With the passage of enough time and given some sort of impetus, the brain can restructure the fragmentary information and restore the memory. The target's reaction is also significant. After all, sudden amnesia would astonish just about anybody to the point where they'd be driven to try and recall the vanished memory by whatever means necessary.
それに夏彦はあなたと出会ってからいつもあなたと一緒にいたもの。無理に記憶を消したとしてもいずれ誰かの口から必ずあなたの話が出てしまう。
I mean, just
そうすれば
Mashiro.
夏彦は自分の記憶と事実の矛盾に気づき、やがてはまた真実に行き当たるでしょう。その繰り返しに陥らない方法はあれしかなかったのよ。
Just as the professor said, it was found to be far easier to cope with memory manipulation than with memory erasure. When a certain memory is replaced with a different memory, the brain obediently accepts the change. The reason for that is that rather than undergoing amnesia, the target may experience various other phenomena, such as believing they simply remembered wrong. Yuuri was well aware of what she had done. Sorry, Professor, that's not all there was to it. When she was a child, Yuuri just couldn't bear having Natsuhiko forget about her. As a result, she had to keep cleaning up the mess she had made. As Yuuri reflected upon her actions, the professor suddenly looked at her watch.
あら、そろそろあの子が来る時間だわ。
That boy?
行きましょう、ゆりちゃん。1年ぶりの王政よ。
What? Yuuri nodded and left the room with the professor. They headed for the Area 5 Neuroscience Laboratory. There, Yuuri reunited with Natsuhiko. What?
1年ぶりだね、ヒコリン。
Excuse me? In front of them was Natsuhiko, put to sleep with drugs. Labo staff had brought him all the way here. What?
ゆりちゃん、2人きりの方がいいでしょ。私は外で待っているわね。
ありがとうございます。
The professor smiled boldly as she left the room. Back in the night where Yuuri agreed to her incarceration in Labo, she had asked the professor for one favor.
ほんのたまにでいいから、1年に1度とかでもいいから、ヒコリンに会わせてください。それだけで私は十分です。
約束するわ。
I'm going to drug my son and bring him in. Professor kept her promise. Once each year, on July 7th, the anniversary of the accident, Yuuri was allowed to see him in this fashion. Granted, Natsuhiko himself was not aware of these little dates. This is really fucked up. It's under the impression that he stayed at Rokame City Hospital once a year for a yearly checkup. Okay. Once he was there, he'd be administered with the sleeping medication and taken to Labo. And back again, before he woke up. This is the only way we can meet, but it's plenty. However, the purpose of these reunions wasn't only so she could see his face. He was brought here once a year to renew the memory of the Yuuri that was inside him. The phantom beauty created by his brain was, after all, a phantom, and nothing more. If no action were taken, the phantom Yuuri would gradually become disparate from the real Yuuri. This was, in essence, maintenance to adjust for changes and disparities. Such was the truth of Natsuhiko's yearly checkups. That's really fucked. Holy shit. Wow. I'm not quite sure if this is really for Hikorin's sake. To be honest, I'm glad I get to see him. Give me Hikorin. Yuuri gently bowed her head and stepped up to Natsuhiko.
今年はどんな年だったかな。
We're gonna see more flashback sequences. And thus Yuuri dove into Natsuhiko's memory. Yep, here we go again. Years worth of memories floated in Natsuhiko's mind. Sights of an uneventful daily life.
夏彦、ご飯作りに来たよ。
ああ、いつもすまないな。
いいのいいの。夏彦の喜ぶ顔が見たくてやってるんだからさ。
The scene of a morning before school. Ah, it's Mashiro. Yuuri loved Mashiro, too. It was only in a memory, Yuuri was honestly glad to see Mashiro again.
また適当なこと言って。僕のためってより、ユーリのためだろ。
バレた？
Apparently Mashiro began cooking meals at Natsuhiko's house this spring. These newest memories included a lot of memories with Mashiro.
ほらほら夏彦、遅刻しちゃうよ。
悪い。 朝から食いすぎた。
Each individual memory was trivial by itself.
夏彦、買い物付き合ってよ。ちょっと買いたいものあるからさ。
なんだよ、またアニメショップにでも行くのか？
いいじゃん、今でしょ。
Something bothered Yuuri about Mashila's facial expressions in these memories.
夏彦、これ見てよ、可愛くない？
買いたいものって服かよ。僕、女の子の服とかよくわからないよ。
男の子の意見も聞きたいんだよ、一般論として。
The way Mashila looked at, spoke to, and behaved with Natsuhiko made it quite obvious that she was falling in love with him. Mashilon, oh no. She likes Hikorin. As Yuuri returned to reality, she gazed at Natsuhiko's sleeping face and whispered,
そうだよね。いつまでも私がヒコリンを独占してたらダメなんだ。
Yeah, it'd be way too cruel to do that to Mashilon. Mashilon's a way better girl than I am, after all. Hikorin's better off with her. At any rate, Yuuri would never be able to properly see Natsuhiko in person for the rest of her life. It was already unnatural for her to be seeing him this way as it was. In that case, both Natsuhiko and Mashila would be way better off if they forgot about Yuuri. The thought began to rapidly spread within Yuri's mind. She walked out of the laboratory with slumped shoulders to find the professor waiting in the hall.
ユーリちゃん、1年ぶりのオーセはどうだった？
博士、ヒコリンの中にある私の記憶、全部マシロンとの記憶に差し替えた方がいいんじゃ。
え？どうしてまたそんなことを？
だってそうじゃないとマシロンが。
マシロちゃんのことを気にかけているの？
Yuuri nodded weakly. After a moment of contemplation, the professor shook her head and replied,
それもおそらくまずいわ。
どうしてですか？
ユーリちゃんに関する記憶を操作すれば、おそらく夏彦の心には重大な問題が出ると思うの。
そんな、でも丁寧にやれば。
いいえ、夏彦にとってユーリちゃんの存在は大きすぎる。そうでなくても夏彦の精神はすでに無数の問題を抱えているのよ。これまでに夏彦は幾度となくユーリちゃんの不在に気づきかけたんだけど、それを認めようとしない。そのあまりに奇妙な行動をとることもあるわ。
奇妙な行動？
例えば我が家のリビングで夏彦がユーリちゃんのためにホットミルクを入れるとするでしょ。
はい。
でも現実にはユーリちゃんはそこに存在しないから、ユーリちゃんのコップの中のミルクは減りはしないわよね。だけどそのことに対し夏彦は何の疑問も持たないの。全く減らないまま冷めたミルクを黙ってシンクに捨てるだけ。
This is something that actually happens in the narration, I believe, which is a hint of foreshadowing.
試みに夏彦にそのミルク減ってないわねと聞くと、何がと心から不思議そうな顔をするわ。
そんなことってあるんですか？
あるのよ。避妊シンドロームって言うんだけどね。他にも奇妙な行動は多いわ。例えば毎日学校に行く前にリビングの照明をつけてから家を出たり。
照明？
そうしないと家に帰ってきた時照明が消えたままになってしまうでしょ。ユーリちゃんが家にいるはずなのに照明が消えていると辻褄が合わない。
Also a thing you can pick up on in the narration from the before round.
それを避けるために照明をつけて家を出るのよ。こういうことを夏彦はすべて無意識に行っているの。
When she had heard all that, Yuuri murmured in a quivering voice,
じゃあヒコリンは私のせいで。
Yes.
違うわ。ユーリちゃんのせいなんかじゃない。
Actually, it is.
避妊シンドロームは脳に何らかの機能異常が起きたとき、こうした症例は世界中で報告されている。夏彦の取る奇妙な行動はすべて他の患者にも見られた行動なのよ。だからお願い、そんなこと言わないで。
It didn't stop the tears from flowing. Gravity of her actions 9 years ago threatened to crush Yuuri.
博士、どうすればいいんでしょう。
そうね。いつか夏彦が事実を受け止められる強さを得たら、その時は真実を教えてもいいのかもしれない。
だけど、その時が来る保証なんて
ないわ。だから私はいつかあなたをラボから解放してみせる。
Yuuri doubted her ears. She couldn't believe the leading researcher in the field of BC would say such a thing.
BC の謎をすべて解き明かすことができたなら、ラボはもうあなたを拘束しておく理由はなくなる。そのために私は人生を捧げるつもりよ。それであなたの人生を壊した罪が償えるとは思えないけど。
そんな。
そしてそれが仮に叶わなかったとしても、いよいよになったら私の命に変えてもあなたたちを外に出してあげるわ。実はね、密かにそのための準備を進めてるの。
What?
一人ではできないことだから難航してるんだけど、いつかは必ず。
Professor spoke remorsefully as she brought Yuuri into a gentle embrace. Yuuri understood. It was another wish that could not be granted. The two of them had been together for 9 years. Yuuri could tell the professor felt hopeless even without using BC. BC research is endless. I'm sure that there are other reasons why they keep me incarcerated. Not that I can imagine what those reasons are. Regardless, she questioned whether or not she had to stay there forever. She questioned how to free Natsuhiko and Mashiro from the curse she cast over them. Without her finding a single answer to any of these questions, days passed by. Then came the day of fate. Roughly 2 months after Tanabata, September 16th, 2030. Early morning that day, Yuuri went with Dr. Tenkawa to the neuroscience laboratory.
ユーリちゃん、こんな早朝からごめんなさいね。
いいんですよ。今日はとっても重要な実験をするんでしょ。
そうね。9時間から12時間程度の長丁場になると思うから、お互い頑張りましょう。実験の前に脳の検査をするわ。実験服に着替えておいて。
Yoko handed Yuuri a change of clothes. In the surrounding area, the professor's colleagues were busy preparing for the examination.
スキャニング準備完了しました。前回と前々回のデータ、こっちに回してくれ。
None of them showed any interest in seeing Yuri's naked body, but she still tried to find cover to change behind. Still, today's experiment is quite unusual, huh? The professor said it's to create a spirit, but is that even possible? What? A moment Yuuri pondered this possibility. Phone rang.
何かしら。
Puzzled, the professor picked up the phone.
はい、天川です。ただいま検査中で。
Before she could finish, the professor's face froze over.
夏彦が。
Yuuri gasped too when she heard that name. As Yuuri strained her ears to listen, the professor continued the phone call.
ええ。なんですって、真白ちゃんとユイも。わかりました。今そちらに向かいます。
With that, the professor hung up the phone.
ヒコリンがどうしたんですか。
よくわからないけど、どうもあの子たちラボに来ているらしいの。
どうやって。
そうよね。検問もあるのに。
So this must be early in the morning before the explosion
時間
started.
から一体何の用で。
Right as the professor spoke, the sound of an explosion rang out in the distance. Oh, here we go. Yuuri was so taken by surprise that she dropped the testing clothes she was about to change into.
何の音？
If to answer that question, more and more sounds echoed forth. The automatic disaster prevention system broadcast an automated message.
ただいま地下1階第1エリアで激しい振動を感知しました。ただいま地下2階第3エリアで激しい振動を感知しました。ただいま地下1階第2エリアで火災が発生しました。ただいま地下2階第2エリアで激しい振動を感知しました。施設内のセキュリティを避難モードに移行。N エリアを除く全ゲートを開放します。
Yuuri didn't really understand what was going on. She did know that something terrible was befalling the facility. Yuuri became frightened and walked up to her. Professor wrapped Yuuri in a protective embrace just as a clamorous broadcast echoed through the halls.
緊急放送です。ただいま施設内で原因不明の爆発が発生しました。現状判明している限り、施設内の十数箇所で同時に爆発が起き、それに伴い火災も発生しています。
The broadcast sent all of the researchers panicking.
十数箇所で爆発だと。原因不明？どういうことだ？
Frightened Yuuri clung to the professor. The professor embraced her shoulders back and spoke.
大丈夫よ。この施設には二重三重の防災システムが配備されているんだから。何が起こっても大規模な災害になったりはしないはず。安全は確保されているの。安心して。
She spoke in a voice calm to the core, as if she were trying to encourage Yuuri.
でもどうしてこんなことが。
ええ、この施設で爆発など起きるわけもないのに。まさかテロ？テロ？近頃 BC 排斥系の過激派グループが市内で破壊活動を行っているのよ。昨日超新圏が爆破され、それで一連の犯行は終わったと思っていたんだけど、まさか本当の狙いはここが BC 研究施設だとバレたの？どこから情報が漏れたんでしょう？わからないわ。向こうの目的も何なのか。でもこのままここにいたら危険なのは間違いないわ。ユーリちゃん、安全なところに避難するわよ。
はい。
Professor took Yuuri by the hand and left the laboratory. They ran up to the emergency staircase and headed to B1 Area 5.
博士、どこに行くんですか？
有事の際に備え、この第5エリアにはシェルターがあるの。本当は0エリアが一番安全なのだけど、あそこに行くには面倒な手続きが必要だから。
Area 0. Professor stopped and looked at the wall. There was a numeric keypad affixed to it.
天夏彦。よし、開いたわ。
Professor entered what appeared to be a passage, and the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passageway. Pressed up to a steel door deep inside and opened it.
悪いけどここに隠れていて。ここは少々の爆発や火災にも耐えられるように設計されている。絶対安全だから。
はい。
私は何が起きているのか調べてくるわ。夏彦のこともあるし。いい？おとなしく待っているのよ。
わかりました。気をつけて。
Professor nodded and left the shelter. Yuuri was left there alone. The sound of explosions kept going on and on. Green's here. Why would he come now of all times? Yuuri was worried about them, but she couldn't just leave the shelter. She could at least confirm their safety. As Yuuri pondered about how to do that, it hit her. I know, I'll use BC. She could confirm Natsuhiko's current situation using Senses Sympathy. Furthermore, since the facility was now in evacuation mode, the BC insulated security gates were all wide open, meaning she would, in theory, be able to use BC on him even if he was in a faraway area. Yuuri focused her mind and tried using Senses Sympathy on Natsuhiko. But when her senses sympathized with Natsuhiko as an intense headache struck. Oh. Pain Natsuhiko felt propagated to Yuuri. Girls beside him looked at him in concern.
夏彦、また頭痛？ 大丈夫夏彦、しっかりして。
This headache. Yuuri knew the truth behind that headache. It was the headache Natsuhiko would always get when his mind was on the verge of collapse. When that thought crossed her mind, they heard another explosion from nearby. Eh? Natsuhiko promptly covered Mashiro and Yuuri. 1 second later, a blazing wind shot by and the kids were blown away.
大丈夫か2人とも。
They slowly got up after having fallen on top of each other. In case you haven't played any of the rest of this game, here's a very detailed recalling of the events, and precisely how they fit into each other with extensive flashbacks to everything.
大丈夫。
Two groaned, but they appeared to be uninjured. Thank goodness. If this route is gonna be more of this, just gradually crawling through everybody's memories and seeing how everyone's memories fits into every single possible piece of the rest of this story, this is gonna drag. Yuuri felt relieved as the 3 kids ran around searching for an exit. She didn't understand what their objective was. Yuuri had a lone desire: to get those 3 out of here as soon as possible. Yuuri focused further and sent Natsuhiko telepathy. Tense telepathy that worked not only to cause an auditory hallucination, but a visual one as well.
Yuuri?
What? Natsuhiko stopped in his tracks, speechless. His eyes were no doubt seeing Yuuri.
ひこりん、どうして来てしまったの。
ユーリこそどうしてここに。家から出られたのか。
Yuuri was holding a conversation with him without issue. She was relieved she had other thoughts on her mind as well. First, you need to find the reason Hikorin came to Labo. With that information, you need to think of a way to get him to leave. Yuuri immediately peered into Natsuhiko's memory. She looked through his memories of what he experienced his previous few days. Oh. How he came across a traffic accident, how he met Salyu, how he heard about the terrorists from Mashiro, and how they came to Labo to stop them. But were one step behind and the terrorist attack proceeded. Watch that Brogan stopped at that time left a severe impression. When she had caught all the details, Yuuri murmured in admiration and surprise.
そういうことだったの。
Those words were heard by Natsuhiko as well, by a BC. What do I do? Now that she had understood the situation, Yuuri was at a loss for how to proceed. First thing on the agenda would probably be to get them out safely. But there was something else that was equally important. Yurin's trying to regain his memories. Natsuhiko had been tormented by his frequently chaotic memory from some time. He still lacked any of the preparedness to know the truth that the professor had talked about. If he were to fall victim to his panic disorder or stupefaction in this situation, it would mean certain death. After all, he'd nearly gotten caught in an explosive blast mere moments ago. If something were to happen to him, then even Mashiro and Yuuri could get caught up in it. Even if the 3 of them did escape, Natsuhiko would eventually regain his memory of 9 years ago regardless. Then his mind would collapse yet again. Out of the impending crisis, there was only one path for Yuuri to take. In that case, I'll start now. Manipulate Hikorin's memory to give him the strength he needs to handle the truth. She didn't know how much time was left. It was something that needed to be done while she guided them down an escape route. It was the only way. Hikorin has so many people there to support him now. As long as Mashiro and Yuuri are here for them, I'm sure Hikorin can handle the truth. I'm not used to calling her Yuuri, she's Salyu. Get him to accept the truth and free him from her curse.
私はヒコリンの時間を何度でも巻き戻すよ。
Well, Thus Yuuri began manipulating Natsuhiko's memories. She guided him gradually towards mental preparedness. There were countless things she needed to do. First, she had to make Natsuhiko aware of his own growth. Next, she had to strengthen how he felt about his bonds with other people around him. In Hikorin's mind, time stopped 9 years ago. So the end-of-day watch-smashing Yuuri was actually present-day Yuuri, and not hallucination Yuuri. Okay, I can appreciate that. Gotta get moving again. They're actual conscious actions from present-day Yuuri. Natsuhiko's memories seemed to be slightly warped by the actions of his own brain. Even Yuuri could clearly see that his impressions of Mashiro and Sally were far worse than what they actually should be. It was likely the result of how he had closed his heart to others for many years. If he kept that up, he would have no chance of handling the impending truth. But to that end, Yuuri worked to mend Natsuhiko's impressions of the ones who supported him, Mashiro and Sally in particular, to more fitting, favorable impressions. Yuuri took extreme care to ensure that her modifications would seamlessly blend with reality. Complication were to arise when the mending. Natsuhiko's mind began to reject Mashiro and the others. Yuuri would take it upon herself to show him a fabricated memory of a tragic future that would await him if he didn't change his ways. Wow, so the entire route was just Yuuri fucking with us. It was a drastic measure, but she couldn't think of any better methods. However, as a result of that effort, Natsuhiko's heart gradually opened. Meanwhile, Yuuri also dropped some hints to the truth, one by one. She hinted that soon enough his false peace would end and he would have to part with the Phantom. Natsuhiko was perplexed at first, but eventually he gained the strength to face the past. As he overcame several crises, he was able to keep moving forward, even in Labo. Because Mashiro and Sally were there for him.
ただいま KSN が発生しました。緊急事態につきセキュリティを封鎖モードに移行。施設内の全ゲートを閉鎖ロックするとともに隔壁
When he encountered a KSN announcement in Area 5, he did not despair. As she saw those results of Natsuhiko's progression, Yuuri thought to herself, this, Hikorin might be able to accept the truth. Natsuhiko's headache was gone as suddenly as it had come. His mental preparation was almost complete. What's left is the finishing touch. Much as I don't like things dragging on, I am thankful that they just mostly skipped over each day of the loop and didn't recap everything painlessly. Finishing touch, making Natsuhiko realize the fact that Mashiro has been supporting him all these 9 years. If he only knew, he'd be thankful for Mashiro and would perhaps be able to cope with Yuri's death. The problem was how to open the gate after it had locked down, but Yuuri happened to see that the professor's security card had been dropped in the stairwell. Natsuhiko hadn't noticed it, so Yuuri tried to inform him of it, but immediately after she did, there was an unforeseen turn of events. Natsuhiko had gone to Dr. Miyoko Tenkawa's office and found something. A file of newspaper articles covering the incident 9 years ago. Natsuhiko's body trembled. He looked towards Yuuri in a daze. Oh no, it's still a little too early. Gotta rewind his time one more time. Now that it's come to this, there's nothing I can do but gamble on Hikorin's mental strength. Yuuri prepared herself and sent telepathy to Natsuhiko.
私は一緒には行けないって言った意味分かったでしょ
This conclusive statement heralding the end of a long dream.
そんな
Natsuhiko's innermost thoughts propagated to Yuuri as well. Confusion, sorrow, agitation, fear, and despair. So Yuuri continued.
ヒコリンお別れの時が来たよずっと騙しててごめんねヒコリンを支えてあげようと思っていたんだよだけどもう私がいなくても大丈夫なはずだよこの数日の間に気づいたでしょヒコリンは一人じゃないって
One thing I don't think I appreciated enough about this scene originally. Voice started echoing a bit more. Yuuri spoke sincerely to move Natsuhiko's heart. But her voice didn't get through to him. When Yuuri ceased the telepathy transmission and erased the phantom, Natsuhiko groaned faintly. Screamed madly. No way, that still wasn't enough? Yuuri fell into despair once more. She had no idea that the curse of hers that bound him was that strong. Well, you don't know if it's just... if it hasn't gotten through or if it just got through. And it just hurts like hell because it's a 9-year-old curse. Then the door opened and Mashita rushed in.
Natsuhiko! Natsuhiko, 叫んでたみたいだけど、何かあったの？
ユーリが消えた。
Natsuhiko flared up at Mashita, to spew out the sorrow of losing Yuuri and the bitterness of having been lied to for 9 whole years.
ユーリはいなかったんだな。9年前からずっと。お前はおかしくなった僕に付き合ってただけなんだろう。こんな滑稽な話があるか。
そんな。
Both Natsuhiko and Mashito's eyes welled up with tears. As he observed the situation through Natsuhiko's eyes, Yuuri too was saddened. No, Hikurin, you mustn't hold it against Mashiron. Been there supporting you all this time. Yuuri was rife with regret. What should I have done? What should I do for Hikurin? Before Yuuri could think any further, unexpected happened. Suddenly, Natsuhiko's vision was engulfed in darkness. His consciousness was abruptly thrown into that endless darkness.
なんだこれ。
Natsuhiko was astonished, but Yuuri understood what was happening. No way. Hikurin sympathized with Mashiron's mind. Third ability, Senses Sympathy, had awoken within Natsuhiko. Though he had shown signs of it the previous night, it was still an unexpected but welcome surprise. That's it. Now Hikurin should be able to understand Mashiron's feelings. Natsuhiko peered into Mashiro's memories, bewildered at what was going on. And thus Natsuhiko learned the truth that Mashiro had been caring for him all these 9 years. When he turned to reality, Natsuhiko tearfully apologized to Mashiro.
マシロ、ごめん。ごめんな。お前、ずっと僕を支えてくれてたんだな。僕のために、ずっと一緒にいてくれてたんだな。
She listened in on their conversation. Yuuri thought to herself, thank goodness. Now Hikurin and Mashiro were both truly free from my curse. Now her role was complete. That feeling of closure, Yuuri calmly disconnected from Natsuhiko's mind. Her own senses returned to her as soon as she did. Spread out before her eyes was an empty room. The side of the lonely room began to blur.
どうして？
Yuuri realized that she was crying. Natsuhiko was free from Yuri's curse, free to be with Mashiro. She thought that was what she had always wished for, yet Yuuri felt as if her heart had been broken in two.
これでいいんだよ。
With that belief, Yuuri wiped her tears. Just then, she heard a knock on the shelter door.
博士？
Yuuri was taken back and rushed over to the door. If the professor had returned, then Yuuri wanted her shoulder to cry on. She was the only one who understood Yuuri, the only one who shared her sadness, someone she could truly call Mom. When she opened the door, she found not the professor, but an unfamiliar man standing there.
ようやく見つけた。君はこのラボの関係者だな。
あなたは？
レスキュー隊だ。君たちを救助に来た。
His voice sounded familiar. It sent shivers of anxiety down her spine. Where have I heard that voice? She soon remembered. She'd heard that voice in Natsuhiko's memory. He was one of the terrorists. That explains why Yuuri was so scared of Watase.
あなたは Q の
Man unintentionally gasped. For a moment his face froze over. That face soon warped into a wicked expression.
おい、まさか BC で読んだのか、俺の心。まあいい、一緒に来てもらおうか。
With that, the man grabbed Yuuri by the arm.
暴れないでくれ。おとなしくすれば手荒なことはしない。
It was very hard to take the man's words at face value. I'll just have to erase his... He plotted to destroy the man's memory and run. Before she could, a pain ran through her neck. 80! But she didn't understand what just happened. Yuuri tried to use BC. Huh? Nothing happened. She couldn't destroy the man's memory. She couldn't even use Senses Sympathy itself at all.
どうして
BC を封じる薬を打たせてもらった。君の能力はもう使えない。
嘘
Without BC, Yuuri was nothing but an ordinary, powerless girl. As Yuuri despaired, the man wrapped his arm around her neck. Oh, jeez. Applied pressure to her carotid artery. Yuuri tried to shake him off, but the man was too strong for her to even budge an inch. Suddenly, her sight blacked out. Kurin, Ashiron. As Yuri's consciousness faded away, she prayed. The others would safely escape from here without encountering this man. Yuri was woken up by a strange sound and extreme heat. For a moment, she remembered the time she was locked away in Labo with Natsuhiko, so she unthinkingly called out his name. She was mistaken. It was currently September 16th, 2030, 9 years after that memory. Yuri looked around. She didn't see the man, but... The hallway was engulfed in flames. Fires had probably spread while she was unconscious.
逃げなきゃ
Yuri stood up in confusion and ran away from the flames. Which begs the question, why did Watase just choke her out and leave her? As she ran, Yuuri thought to herself, how long have I been unconscious? Where did that man go? The man had disappeared after knocking Yuuri out. From that observation, she couldn't understand what his goal was at all. No, there's no time to think about all that. First, I need to find a way to survive. Yuuri shook off her doubts and ran through the hallway. On the way, she stopped by a room and obtained a level 6 security card that had been left behind. She tried going to Dr. Yuuri Tenkawa's office, but she saw no sign of Natsuhiko and the others. They probably escaped by their own means. My goodness. Right when Yuri sighed in relief, the flames assailed her. Yuri kept running as the fire and smoke chased her. She went through the blazing factory. Then into Area 1. There were no escape routes to be found. There was no longer any way out. Every path she took was blocked by fire.
あの部屋に
Yuri plunged into a nearby room, every fiber of her being focused only on escaping from the flames. She lowered her body and crawled into her desk so as to not breathe in the smoke. She could tell it was only a matter of time before that room burned up too. Am I going to die here? Thought that might not be such a bad thing. Even if she were to survive, she probably would never make it out of Labo. Oh, that time she first went looking at the keypad leading into the safe room. She was thinking to sneak away and sneak into the escape room to get away from Watase and friends, right? That makes a lot of sense. As long as Natsuhiko and the others managed to escape in the end, that was probably good enough for her. That's right, the lie we kept telling is now coming true. It's all. That thought, Yuuri prepared herself, but then... she heard an explosion from outside the room. Yuuri couldn't help but scream. The door to the room was crushed and flames rushed in. Then the force of the flames fiercely intensified. Perhaps something explosive had caught on fire. The heat was so intense that it was difficult to breathe. Heat haze rose up from the entire floor, warping the sight of Yuri's surroundings. She watched the haze, all the preparation Yuuri had made to accept her death, turned into fear. She kept screaming in solitude. The fear of actual impending death blew away what little resolve to die Yuuri thought she had. Heat wave blew through like a windstorm. Smoke filled the room. Yuuri coughed violently. Her eyes watered. Then she heard voices from somewhere in the distance. They were female voices. Judging by their conversation, they seemed to be firefighters or something. When Yuuri lifted her head, she heard the sound of water coming from the other side of the crushed door. They were extinguishing the fires outside. Violent heat wave rapidly died down. There's no doubt about it. They're firefighters. She heard a voice in response. Yuuri called out once more to whomever it was that was rushing over to her. And finally, the owner of the footsteps came running into the room. Yuuri desperately reached out her hand. As soon as she made eye contact with the owner of the voice, Yuuri gasped in shock. Standing there was the man who had just attacked her earlier. Why? Why did he come to save me? She was thoroughly confused and understood nothing of the situation. The man's face stiffened too for some reason, and he froze in place. Meanwhile, the fires drew closer to Yuuri. Eventually, the man shot off like a bullet, straight into the room to save Yuuri. What? What is going on? Okay, we're back. Natsuhiko returned to reality, thank God.
大丈夫？ヒコリン。
Natsuhiko heard Yuri's voice, but his vision was still blurry. For in his eyes were tears.
ユーリ。
ごめんね。ずっと騙していて。
Yuri said the same words she did back then. How many levels of deceiving Natsuhiko are you on? You are but small baby. I will several levels of deceiving Natsuhiko. Please don't say you deceived me. Natsuhiko had been free for 9 years in exchange for Yuri's confinement. This is true. It was an unbearable truth for him. Damn, what the hell's wrong with me? Years and years I've been protected by the girls precious to me. Took it all for granted without ever realizing how much they sacrificed for me. Yeah, I will. Reading the way things played out, I was a bit too hard on Yuuri. Perhaps being 9 and grief-stricken about having to be taken away from the outside world. You would do that without realizing the consequences. You would possibly do what Yuuri did to her best friend without realizing, I think, what the consequences could have been. Natsuhiko was tormented by bitterness and shame.
どうしてそんなに優しくなれるんだ？僕のせいで君は9年間も人生を無駄にしてしまったのに、恨み事の一つも言わないで、誰にも語ることもなく 今日も僕を助けようとして。どうして僕なんかのためにそんなことができるんだ。どうして自分のことをもっと大切に考えられないんだ。
Yuuri calmly answered.
私はね、ヒコリン、一生ここから出られないと思ってたんだよ。だからヒコリンが私を忘れてマシロンと幸せになれるならそれでいいって、そう思っただけなんだよ。本当にそれだけなの。
Yuuri gave a lonely smile, as if she had given up on something she had long thought to be precious. When he saw that look on her face, Natsuhiko understood her feelings. See, Yuuri, given up. To survive her hopeless days, she gave up every hope of her own future. But that was not something that a normal person could withstand. Heart of hearts, Yuuri must have wanted to be saved. After all, she did ask me to save her. She asked me and not anyone else. She had appeared before him and made him look into his own mind. She may not have realized it herself, but there was perhaps a slight gap in her reasoning. But Natsuhiko couldn't overlook that. Others might overlook it, but there's no way I could. Natsuhiko wiped his tears and gazed at Yuuri.
なあ、ユーリ、失った時間を取り戻せると思うか。
それは無理だよ。記憶は変えられても事実は変えられないんだから。
That was an obvious answer. Not one Natsuhiko could approve of.
いや、それでもやってやる。
え？
僕が君の失った時間を必ず取り戻してやる。一生ここから出られないなんて、そんなバカな話あっていいわけがない。僕がこの命に変えても君を自由にしてやる。
Well, that sounds familiar.
そんな命に変えてなんて。それじゃ何のために9年前ヒコリンを助けたのかわからなくなっちゃうよ。
頼む。せめてそれくらいはさせてくれ。君と出会い、今日まで過ごした日々は本当に楽しかったんだ。それが嘘だったって言うなら、その嘘を真実に変えてみせる。君が幻だったって言うなら、現実に変えてみせる。
That was one thing he could do for Yuuri. The only way he could repay her for protecting her all these 9 years.
この施設から生きて出よう、ユーリ。本当は君だってそれを望んでいるはずだ。
Yuri's eyes widened. Eventually, her surprise was painted over with the colors of joy and relief. That one word signified the sentiment she had locked away in her heart for 9 years. Her hope for freedom. Our only tip for today is denial syndrome. In 1908, French neuroscientist Joseph Francois Babinski discovered that among patients who were paralyzed on the left half of the body due to injury to the right parietal lobe of the brain, some who were otherwise mentally sound were unaware of their own condition, would deny or ignore any attempts to make them aware of their condition, perhaps as a result of the sort of psychological defense functions overcompensation to maintain mental peace. When Natsuhiko's memories were falsified with Senses Sympathy and he began to see Yuri's phantom, he unconsciously rationalized all the contradictions in her daily life. Which means even though he wasn't conscious of it, he understood somewhere in the back of his head that Yuuri was gone. His newly rank S aptitude mind was probably filled with high-purity M particles loaded with his emotions for Yuuri. Opposing those feelings was the fear of learning the truth, which perhaps contributed to why his BC abilities had remained dormant for so long. Yeah, accurate. So we've got the full picture of what was happening in the before round. And even though I went through this saying that, yeah, a lot of dragging Natsuhiko into there was pretty fucked up, it was also fucked up that Yuuri had to stay locked away and studied for 9 years. Like, she's 9. What is she gonna do? I guess I say that knowing what she did. On one hand, it's fucked up to keep someone locked up underground for 9 years. On the other hand, using the third BC ability without fully understanding the consequences had some drastic effects. So, in that vein, maybe it's a good idea. In that vein, there was definitely a need to understand that third ability mutually. People to understand how it worked, and for Yuuri to understand how to use it and what the potential negative effects of it could be. So, you could say that the bureaucratic Labo impression of the situation comes down to, we don't know what she could do if left to her own devices with this ability. So we have to keep her underground and study her. And training that ability so Yuuri knows how to use it too. She did lose 9 years of her life down here, but it's hardly like Tsugumi from Ever 17 being locked up by Leiblich Pharmaceutical. I'm gonna say that was the more aggressive, painful, torturous time. Yuuri, in the large part, was not wanting for anything other than human contact and being outside, and human contact and having a life outside with other people, with friends she had made before this power awakened. So I guess it's hardly comparable to some of the worse organizations we've seen it in games like these. I still don't think Labo's all that. Like, it's still unclear what's all about in Labo. Like, it's still unclear, I guess, if there's an issue in the upper management of Labo concerning communicators. I guess, correct me if I'm reading things wrong, but I get the feeling that, as harsh as it is to confine someone for 9 years, I get the feeling that, given their lack of understanding of senses sympathy and the potential negative effects of misusing it or using it improperly, not entirely unjustified case. I don't know. I hope I'm not reading things wrong and jumping onto a bad train of thought, if I'm not missing something horrible that they did, but I understand why Yuuri had to be here more than I expected to. Doesn't mean you have to like it, but I get it. Doesn't mean we can't hope that Yuuri can get out of here someday and live a normal life. But for the situation as given to us, I get it. Both feelings can coexist. Like, both feelings that Yuuri really did something horrible to Natsuhiko by implanting that memory of herself, pleading with him to not forget her, spawning the phantom Yuuri. Like, that feeling that what she did really kind of messed up. And that feeling that, yes, she's lost her normal life now, and she's been told that she has to remove herself from her best friend or to save him. And she's also still 9, so of course it's gonna hurt. To understand why she did it, and still feel like, yeah, that's an unexpected consequence from recklessly manipulating memories. I feel like the game went on to make sure she was aware of that fact later on, but again, both feelings can coexist. Oh man. Oh. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the before route from Yuuri's perspective. Hopefully, we should be getting back to the actual plot on hand here. Yeah, literally our first saves were in here, and now we're Natsuhiko's side. Scene title all caps again. Well, again, I'm also torn with how these first few videos of Double have gone. It's the end of Current had me set up for some epic shit to go down. And yet, within minutes of getting into Current, we did find Yuuri, which is pretty big. And found that Yuuri was real, which is also pretty big. But we just spent, like, 2 whole videos of this series diving through flashbacks, which had some important stuff to tell us, but largely felt like it was dragging and repetitive. Let me know what you think. Because I'm still... Like a lot of the stuff that really ends up grating at me about this game, I feel like can still justify its existence. Like, the game occasionally drags for a bit, but then incorporates something that makes the sequence justify itself. Justify its existence to makes it worth it. Clearly, this was building up to reveal of I guess, yeah, really everything we learned for these past 2 videos has been from 9 years ago to the start of Watase's route. I mean, I guess the phantom. I guess the phantom power. I don't know how I feel about that, but it works. It fits in with everything we've seen so far. Conflicted. Hopefully we'll move forward next video. Until next time, until then.